My Weirder-est School, Book Number 11. Mrs. Stoker is a Joker. Written by Dan Gutman. Pictures by Jim Palott. Chapter 2. The Long Goodbye. Everybody was sad that Mr. Klutz had to retire. It was hard to pay attention in Mr. Cooper's class while he was trying to teach us math and social studies. "Okay, everyone," said Mr. Cooper, "let's try to focus." "Why should we try to focus?" I asked. "We're not cameras." "Not that kind of focus, Arlo," said Andrea, who calls me by my real name because she knows I don't like it. I was just yanking Andrea's chain. I know what focus means. When it was time for lunch, none of us were in the mood to eat. We went out to play on the monkey bars during recess, but all anybody could talk about was Mr. Klutz. "I can't believe he has to retire," Ryan said with tears in his eyes. "Mr. Klutz is the only principal we've ever had." "And he's not even that old," said Alexia. "Bald men don't look as old as they are," said Neil, "because they can't lose any more hair." "I heard that when some people get old," I said, "they get put on ice floes and floated off into the sunset." "That's not a thing, Arlo," Andrea said, rolling her eyes. "It is too a thing," I told her. "No way that's a thing," said Andrea. "It's a thing," I insisted. We went back and forth like that for a while. "Ooh, AJ and Andrea are arguing about what a thing is," said Ryan. "They must be in love." "When are you gonna get married?" asked Michael. "If those guys weren't my best friends, I would hate them." Andrea and I kept arguing over whether or not it was a thing to put old people on ice floes. Then I remembered that we were talking about Mr. Klutz. He was a great principal. "One time," I said, "I got sent to the principal's office because I was bad. I thought Mr. Klutz was going to punish me, but instead he gave me a candy bar." "Remember the time he climbed up to the top of the flagpole and got stuck there?" asked Ryan. "Remember the time he let us dye his head like an Easter egg?" asked Alexia. "Remember the time he married a turkey?" asked Michael. "Ah, those were the good old days. Mr. Klutz was nuts, but he was a good principal." "I bet we're going to get some boring, normal principal," said Neil. "Maybe Mrs. Jaffe will be our new principal," said Emily. "Yes," agreed Andrea. "When the president leaves office in the middle of the term, the vice president becomes president. So Mrs. Jaffe should be the new principal." "Mrs. Jaffe is no fun at all," groaned Michael. That's when the weirdest thing in the history of the world happened. A marching band marched out of the school. They formed a line on the playground and started to play some song called "Hail to the Chief." "Where did that marching band come from?" asked Ryan. "Rent a marching band," I told him. "You can rent anything." Our custodian, Mrs. Lazar, rolled a long red carpet out onto the playground. Mr. Klutz came out of the school and walked on the red carpet. Some soldiers came out and gave a 21-gun salute. 5 jet planes flew in formation overhead. I didn't realize that changing principals was such a big deal. Suddenly, there was a weird sound in the distance. I couldn't tell what it was at first. "Look, up in the sky," shouted Andrea. "It's a bird." "No, it's a plane," shouted Ryan. Actually, it was a helicopter. It was blue, and it hovered over our heads and landed on the blacktop. Miss Lazar set up a microphone for Mr. Klutz. We gave him a round of applause. "Thank you, students," he said. "It has been my honor, blah, 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 all these years at elementary school, blah, 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 fine young people, blah, 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 carry on, blah, 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 youth of America, blah, 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 future lies in your hands, blah, 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 blah." He said some more stuff, but I was looking at the helicopter. Helicopters are cool. Mr. Klutz climbed into the helicopter as we all waved goodbye. There was a lot of sniveling and sobbing and slobbering. Some of the teachers blew their noses into tissues. Well, not exactly. They just blew their snot into the tissues. It would be weird to blow your nose into a tissue. How would you get your nose back on your face? The helicopter flew away. Mr. Klutz waved goodbye through the little window. It was the end of an era at elementary school. "Well, I guess he's gone forever," said Alexia. "Wait a minute," said Ryan. "Doesn't Mr. Klutz live right down the street? Why is he taking a helicopter? He could walk home." "It's more dramatic this way," said Andrea. "I wondered if Mr. Klutz takes a helicopter to the supermarket to do his grocery shopping," I said. "How did he get a helicopter anyway?" asked Neil. "From Rent-A-Helicopter," I told him. "You can rent anything." Mrs. Jaffe, the vice principal, came over to us. "Okay, everybody," she said. "The show is over. Time to go back to your class." "Are you going to be the new principal, Mrs. Jaffe?" asked Emily. "Not yet," she said. "Dr. Carbles has the final decision. Hiring a new principal could take time. He will probably place an ad in the newspaper and interview a bunch of people for the job. It could be weeks or even months before there's a replacement for Mr. Klutz." "I hope he picks you," said Andrea. "You would make a great principal." "I agree," said Emily, "of course." What a pair of brown-nosers those two are. Mrs. Jaffe wasn't even the principal yet, and they were already sucking up to her. "It has always been my dream to be a principal," said Mrs. Jaffe. "That's when the weirdest thing in the history of the world happened. But I'm not going to tell you what it was." Okay, I'll tell you. But you have to read the next chapter. So na-na-na boo-boo on you."